Okay, so before we start the meeting, I'll just need to read the following webcasting announcement. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. Therefore, by entering the council chamber and using the seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. Okay, so welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of Place Scrutiny Committee on the 1st of July 2025. I'm your chairman, Councillor Joseph Parsons, and I'll run you through mostly everyone present. So to my right, we've got my vice chairman, Councillor Darshan Sunga, and to my left, we've got firstly Barbara Beardwell, who's the council's monitoring officer. We've got James Warwick, who's the service director for contracts, and we've got Owen Sparks, who's the section 151 officer. To my vice chairman's right, we've got Laura Kerman from Democratic Services. And I'll introduce Rick Schuneman as well, who's a planning officer, who's going to be doing one of the reports tonight. So we've got various other officers online and in person as well that should hopefully be able to cover any questions you might have. So on to agenda item number 2. Have we got any apologies of absence?
We have several apologies for absence, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Bromwich, Councillor Allgood, Councillor Bassett and Councillor Markham.
Thank you. And any substitute members?
The substitute members, I've got Councillor Morgan for Councillor Bromwich, we've got Councillor Rackham for Councillor Allgood, and we have Councillor Lee for Councillor Bassett.
Right, thank you. And members, any declarations of interest? So that's none for anybody. Okay, so we move on to item 5, which is the notes of the previous meeting. That's pages 3 to 6. So the last committee meeting was held on the 21st of January. Are members that were there happy to agree those minutes?
Agreed.
Yep, brilliant. Okay, thank you. So then we've got item number 6 on page 7, which is our work programme. The good news, there's a lot more than there was 2 weeks ago on that, so we've got some work this year. Have members got any comments on that at all? Or any suggestions for future items? Okay, great. So we can agree those as they are. Then on to item 7, which is the food and garden waste collection service proposals. I'll pass over to James Warwick for the presentation on that.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the paper tonight was referred by ONS on the 10th of June, and it was to discuss and make recommendations to Cabinet on recommendation 2 of the food and garden waste collection service proposal, which is to agree that EFDC introduce an annual garden waste subscription charge of £60 for fortnightly collections of garden waste. So Overview and Scrutiny agreed to the other recommendations in terms of separating the food and garden service, and this decision will go to Cabinet on the 21st of July. The proposals around introducing a charge for garden waste are to offset the operational costs and implementation costs. Any surplus generated will be used to balance the budget deficit and protect other frontline services. As highlighted in the report, we're one of only 2 local authorities in Essex currently not charging for garden waste. Majority of local authorities up and down the country do now charge for garden waste. By introducing a charge, it also means that only those that opt in are paying for the service. The report has an appendix of prices of all the other Essex local authorities. I would like to point out those prices that the Essex local authorities charge are as of April 2025. I can almost guarantee that those prices will increase in April 2026. The recommendation is for fortnightly collections. This is in keeping with many of the Essex local authorities and quite common for the rest of England, with the exception that we would suspend the service for 2 weeks around Christmas, New Year. This would enable to free up TFS operatives to deal with the extra waste tonnage and recycling from Christmas, and also to explore a partnership with St Clair's Hospice in terms of offering a service to collect real Christmas trees from residents and then donating them to the hospice. The report also addresses a number of questions or concerns that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee raised on the 10th of June, and that's around fly tipping, the fear that by introducing a charge there'll be increased fly tipping. As said on the night, there is no evidence from other local authorities that there is a spike in fly tipping when a garden charge. If fly tipping occurs, it will still be dealt with in the same way as a criminal offence to dump the garden waste. So we would work closely with the enforcement team on that. This report also provides a bit more detail and clarification around the permit stickers. And I think there are examples of what would go on once someone signed up to the system. They would then receive a permit sticker to go onto the green bin. This enables the TVS operatives to identify what bins to collect. And also, one of the options we're exploring is having the address, the property address. We wouldn't have the resident's name on there, but the property address to then stop kind of if they're easily identify if bins go missing. The other area was around direct debit. This is kind of would be explored in more detail if approved for implementation. And then the final point was further information around alternatives. If people didn't sign up for the scheme, how would they dispose of their garden waste? So there's information there in terms of the household recycling centres, but also more information around composting, and through Love Essex, residents would be able to get a composting bin at a reduced price. There's also online tools and videos to help, but if this were approved, we would also kind of work with residents to raise awareness of composting and the alternatives. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thanks, James. So I'll go straight over to members. Any questions? I'll start with Councillor Lee.
I'm not normally on this committee, so this is all quite new to me today. But I have got questions because obviously, like next door's just got the false grass things. But so if you have a bunch of flowers delivered, for instance, because my little bit of garden waste is so minimal, but what do you do then with a bunch of flowers? Because you're not going to pay £60 a year to have a bunch of flowers every other week thrown in a bin. And how are you separating? Are we then having the big green bins left or not used, or are we having little food bins? Or so I need to know in my mind, and plus if I don't know, the public don't know. So £60, I do understand that nearly every area does charge for it because I've got family in other areas. So to me, that's actually quite reasonable. But I just need to know then, how are you doing just with the food waste? Because some people have a lot of food waste. I have one like little bag a week, so because we don't waste food. So if that's explained properly to me, please.
So with the food waste, each household would get a kitchen caddy, so which number of houses residents will have already to keep in their house, put the food waste in, and they get a larger kitchen caddy that can be stored outside to transfer the food waste there. So, and then we have to, under legislation, we have to collect food waste weekly. So the food waste would be collected weekly from the kitchen caddies. Most common would be on the back of the refuge truck, would be an empty wheel bin, and they use that wheel bin to tip the kitchen caddies in there. So that's how that would be collected. the garden waste, yeah, it would be a green wheeled bin for garden waste. I believe we have a couple of sizes for that, but I think if there is the option to, if people generate quite a lot of garden waste, there is the option of having a second wheel bin. And rather than with the garden waste, rather than having kind of large bins like we have for recycling, we have to be careful with the weight that the bin lids are likely to, when they're lifted, they could snap if they're too heavy in that. So that's that. It's down to the individual resident really how to dispose of their flowers. If they've got one flowers, yeah. Hopefully they do it in a sensible way, and that. But yeah, it's down to the individual.
Oh, thank you.
We've got Councillor Rackham next.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your report. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, I'd like to know how we came to the figure of £60, firstly. Because if you look at some of these other figures, they're all sort of all over the place. You know, we've got one that's £50, then we've got another one that's 55, then we have got another 60, then there's 72. So I just wanted to know, firstly, how we came to that cost. The other thing is, do you think by the time that the scheme's implemented that it will go up? And also, I'd like to know, basically there will be people that will opt in. We know that. There's some really, really good residents that we have. They're not the residents that I'm particularly worried about. The residents that I am worried about are the ones that just throw their rubbish out. So they're really not going to be bothered whether they throw their green waste out as well. And I wondered what sort of things we may bring in to stop these people from throwing their rubbish everywhere. Because, as I said, they will continue. And the other thing is about the Christmas period. So you're just not going to do a collection for the green waste over that period, yeah? But you are going to collect people's Christmas trees. And is that something that helps is that something that happens in all the other areas? Is that something they do, or is that something that's just going to be for the district council here?
Okay. So in terms of Christmas, it's most local authorities do stop. It does vary. Some local authorities have longer than 2 weeks. Where I live, the garden waste collection starts in March and finishes in November. So it's essentially collections don't take place in the non-growing season and that. So, but some of our neighbouring local authorities, it is stopped just for those 2 weeks over Christmas to free up resources. Obviously, all the other collections. David might know more whether other local authorities offer to collect Christmas trees. I think it will vary. I think some will, some won't. The £60 was kind of looking at prices up and down the country, but then kind of looking closely at the Essex authorities and really looking at our close kind of for West Essex, looking at Harlow and Uttlesford, and that with Harlow's 57, Uttlesford's 65. With Harlow, there's an additional, I think, £37 something for the first year as well for the actual bin or sacks and that. So that's where we pitched it. We've kind of pitched it to try to cover the costs, to try, if the take-up's good, generate a surplus, as I've mentioned, to help plug the budget deficit, but also to give enough flexibility in terms of there are some unknowns in terms of what the actual cost of the vehicles will be over the period when between now and implementation, if this is improved, it's wages are likely to increase, fuel prices are likely to increase as well. So we've factored that in. And then in terms of residents, I think David and I are working on a piece of work looking at the structure of the waste management team and the roles of the officers. And before TVS, with the contract with BIFA, it was more of a client contractor role, a lot more monitoring. We kind of want to move away from that and build in capacity that the waste officers are more proactive, so they are delivering more educational messages. We are targeting areas where, okay, if people aren't compliant with this. So and obviously in terms of legislation, we use all the powers we've got to stop people, especially kind of dumping the rubbish illegal.
Thank you. David, did you want to come in on the Christmas trees point?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On Christmas trees, a number of authorities do that. Some authorities don't do that. We've collected Christmas trees for a number of years, but I had been approached by a local hospice before about working with them on Christmas tree collections. So as we progress with this, I'll want to sort of take that up to see if something can be developed, that they will expand or offer the service wider than what they have done in the past. That way Christmas trees can be collected and recycled, and also provide a more local benefit to people around here.
Thank you. So next I've got Councillor Sunga.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warwick, for that presentation. I've had a read through this report, and I think £60 per year is a very small amount of money for the service that we will get. I've got a couple of questions in terms of, you mentioned about the sticker system that you're going to be using. This, I take it, will it be managed or outsourced or managed internally? My first question. If I can just if you want to take the other two questions as well. And if we have non-compliant bins, how will enforcement be handled? And the third thing is there any specific criteria for any exemptions from the £60 charge? Thank you, Mr. Warwick.
Thank you. I think at the moment we're still exploring options. I think our preference in terms of the permit stickers would be internally, but obviously we would need to see kind of what the resource requirements and all the costs of that. So that finer detail. Some people outsource it, some people keep it in-house. So it's something we need to explore. In terms of non-compliant bins, so if the garden waste is presented in a bin that hasn't got a permit sticker, it won't be collected. Simple as that. Then the waste team can kind of investigate it. If the resident's forgotten to put their sticker on, we can work through that. And then, sorry, your final exemption, if anyone's exempt.
Yeah. Will you have some form of a specific criteria for any exemptions that might be part of the scheme or not? Whether there is, I don't know.
Again, it's not necessarily exemption to the charge, but one of the things that did get mentioned at Overview and Scrutiny, I should have mentioned earlier, was around concessionary charges. So we are looking to see potentially around the council tax reduction, using that as a means then that there may be a concessionary price for garden waste, but again it's the detail of that is being worked out.
Thank you. Got Councillor Morgan next.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions, actually. You mentioned about working with Love Essex on the composting. That would be quite nice to understand how you're going to engage with the public to find out how they can compost and different ways to do that. Also, I have had a resident contact me this week about the extra bin, because obviously we've got the blue-lidded bins coming now and we'll be getting rid of the green. They have a bin shed in their flats, and like you were saying about poor Councillor Lee's flowers that she doesn't know what to do with now that she's been delivered, where are they going to put them? Because the extra green bin, can that go out on the street? Because they have no room in their bin sheds to put them. They've got the black bins, they're going to have the new bin caddy. That's the other question, because they've been asking me how big they are. And then they've got the green bins and the blue-lidded bins. Their bin sheds just aren't big enough for all these bins. What will happen if we leave the green bin outside, and are we allowed to leave it on the road? And the Christmas trees, so is this an extra charge that we're doing for the Christmas trees? So I know you said you're working with maybe one of the hospices, because we pay every year for them to collect the tree. Is that for collection that we're going to have to pay, or is that EFDC are collecting alongside what they would have been the green bins? Thank you.
We work, so Love Essex is essentially Essex County Council, so we work in partnership with them on a number of campaigns. Again, this would be part of David's team, kind of the waste officers, working residents, raise awareness, promoting the scheme. I think in the past, David's team have done demonstrations. So one example is we may have presence in high streets. So on a Monday, Epping Market, potentially the waste team could have a stall there with composting bins and do demonstrations with leaflets to give out to residents of how they can get one and kind of how they use it. So yeah, we would be as proactive as we can to raise the awareness, and obviously social media, we would use that. If I jump to the other one, Christmas tree collection, there wouldn't be no additional charge for that. That would be something that we would offer, working with St Clair's Hospice and that, because yeah, so we would TVS would just collect them and then take them to the hospice. The extra, I'm not sure I fully understood the extra bin question and that. Are they flats, did you say? So have they got gardens though? Would they need a green bin?
They do gardening.
Sorry.
Yeah, they do some of the gardening because it's not upkept by the local authority. So they have been known to go out and do the gardening themselves and put it in there. And so can I just ask one more question? You mentioned about the Essex County Council, and they would be promoting the schemes and going out into the high streets and things. But I'm more concerned about the more rural residents and those that don't use social media. But can I just say thank you? You've changed it from the 10 months, or from the 2 months it wasn't going to do, to 2 weeks. That's a lot better. So you've listened to the other people. Thank you.
Yeah, just sorry. I think the raising awareness, promoting the composting would be us would be EFDC in conjunction. So the waste officers can reach those rural areas. We would make sure that we have as wide a coverage as possible, and also kind of linking in with Wendy's team and the community champions and kind of any community event and kind of all the good work that goes on there. So just kind of any community events we can piggyback on and that. I think in terms of, rather than getting into too much detail with the extra bin, we would explore it on a case-by-case basis. So if they're communal properties, but they've got a garden in there, again, David's team can go out, assess kind of the bin sheds to see, well, are they fit for purpose? Do we need a bigger bin store? If they're EFDC properties, we work with housing colleagues on this to ensure that there's not only adequate space, but they've got the right containers and that we can capture as much of the waste as possible. If they're not, if they're private, we will try and work with the managing agent and landlords, and we can look at individual locations on a case-by-case basis to try and ensure that there are green bins as well as kind of food waste and recycling. For David, size kitchen caddies, it's a good point. We did say, or Councillor Balcombe did say, we should have brought one, and we should have.
Yeah, thank you. The kitchen caddies, they're manufactured between 5 and 7 litres in size. The ones that we issue at the moment are 5 litres. And the curbside caddies, which are put out for the collection, are between 25 and 27 litres inside. Obviously, to roll out across the district, we will be holding a tender exercise, and one thing that we won't necessarily do is fix an actual leachage from this, because we want to see what the market can offer us.
Thank you. So next we've got Councillor Morris.
Okay. Yeah, and Councillor Whitehouse as well.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Whitehouse.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I had 2 questions. No, actually I had 3 questions. First of all, on the charge, the £60, there doesn't seem to be a lot of justification for the £60 in the documents that have been circulated, apart from comparing it with other councils. We don't really know how much it costs them to deliver that service, so it's not a perfect guide. And you've mentioned that there will be some profit made if there's a good take-up. But, I mean, even on your basic assumption of 40% take-up, you're looking at over a 50% margin. So that's quite significant. And I don't know how that decision was taken. Did you intend to have such a significant margin on the initial rollout? And would it be better to consider a more modest one, which might be easier to... bit less aggressive and maybe easier to defend in terms of, you know, people suddenly having to pay for a service that they previously got for free, basically. So that's point 1. The other question is really about whether you had a look at if the uptake would increase if you lowered the cost. So there's a balance to be considered here about, okay, we've said it's £60. Well, what was happening if it was 55 or 50? Would we get a greater uptake? And would there really be any impact on the profitability of the scheme if that was the case? I don't know if that's been considered. My third question was just a bit of a detail in the report itself. I wasn't very clear, it might be related to the cost, I suppose, as to whether you would be needing new vehicles for this service or not. It sort of seemed a bit, I couldn't quite make out from the report whether that was the case or not. Thank you.
Yeah, The charge was derived from, as you said, comparing with other local authorities, and then the surplus that it would generate is to kind of protect other frontline service and reduce the budget deficit. And there is an element of obviously estimates at the moment because we don't know what the take up would be, and that obviously we've based the 40% on other local authorities that have recently introduced in the last year or two garden waste, and that's generally around 40% uptake in year one. It does, so yeah, the operating costs and the whether a surplus is generated does vary throughout. So yeah, the higher the uptake, the more vehicles, the more staff we would need. The cost of the service would be greater to implement in that. So it is at the moment it is finding that middle ground, but it's up to members to approve the charging for garden waste and set that price. In terms of the vehicles, and David will correct me if I'm wrong, we don't require new vehicles for the garden waste service as we have those vehicles. What we do require new vehicles for is for the food waste. So in order to separate the food and garden, as I mentioned, food will be collected weekly. And we will need food vehicles for them, which will be smaller. So at the moment, we're looking at, and in discussions with that, they're likely to be 12 tonnes vehicles. At the moment, we're estimating we would probably need 8 new vehicles for that service. We'd rather err on the side of caution and have one too many than one too few, because the contract that we've got, we can get rid of one of the vehicles. So yeah, so there is a cost for the food waste service, but not garden.
Thank you. So, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chairman. If the garden bins aren't used, apart from like my little bag food rubbish, when the food bins are delivered, can the green bins be taken away, or have they still got to stay there? And I'm interested to know, because I've no idea, why do the hospices want the Christmas trees? So I have no idea what that's about. So if you can tell me what that is. And can the green bins be taken when the food bins are delivered?
Ideally not, no. We think it's quite a logistical nightmare to collect the garden waste bins in from people. Also, you have the danger that we know that not everyone is going to want to opt in year one. You may have, and where I live, I was one of these persons when they introduced the garden waste charge. I left it a few months before signing up. But so if we collect those that don't sign up from day one, if we collect their garden waste bins in, but then a few months down the line, they want to sign up, we then have to deliver a garden waste bin there. So some people also might want to keep their garden waste bin and to store their garden waste in and dispose of it at the household recycling. So we're not proposing to collect the garden waste bins in. And the hospice, David did tell me, and I've forgotten, David, could you pick up St Clair's Hospice use of the Christmas trees?
Yes, thank you. The way the hospice works is that they volunteer to go and collect these Christmas trees, and what they look for is a donation in kind that comes to the hospice. And that's how they've operated it in the past. Obviously, if it's going to be on a wider basis, we need to be able to see if the hospice, one, can deal with that, and two, on what basis that they would do that. But that's how they've operated it in the past. And obviously, they've used the sort of raw materials either on their individual grounds, or that they've sold it as a form of wood chippings, etc.
Okay, Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. At overview and scrutiny, Councillor George felt that £60 was very high and suggested a different figure. And she has had detailed correspondence with the officers about her views and the calculations that she has made. I'm not going to try and summarise all that correspondence, but just to ask that, you know, the arguments she's putting forward are seriously considered. One of the questions she asked was, would there be concessions for people on low incomes? And the answer that she was given was that you are exploring options to see if you can access relevant information to enable you to develop a robust concessionary scheme, which was good news. And it does give the impression that this proposal for the £60 is sort of a work in progress in a way, and that, you know, the report that eventually goes to Cabinet may be slightly different from what we've been having so far. My particular point that I wanted to raise was it doesn't seem fair that people who have got very small little gardens, perhaps, you know, terraced houses, are being asked to pay the same as some of these houses in our district, which have absolutely massive gardens. I know that they will pay another £60 for the extra 1, 2 or more bins that they're going to have. But people with very small gardens are not going to be requiring a collection nearly as often as people with the very big gardens. And I just think, you know, there ought to be some sort of fairness about this, to charge people with such different amounts of rubbish just the same, just seems unfair, really. So I just request that's something else you look at. I'm not quite sure how you would do it to know how big people's gardens are, but you know, I'm sure it's not insurmountable, but I just think it's unfair. So just wanted to put that point. Thank you.
Thank you. David, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not aware of a garden waste subscription scheme that their price is based on the size of the property and size of the garden. I think it would be very, very, very difficult to judge and base. There's not varying. It costs the same to collect from a terraced house as it does a large house. I know they might not use the services frequent as a large house, but the costs of it are still the same, and that there isn't a scheme that it's based on kind of garden size.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Dadd next.
Thank you, Chairman. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but the surplus, presumably there is a break-even point, and then the more garden waste above your costs becomes a profit because that becomes fertiliser or whatever. That's the first point. And if that is the case, have you also considered ways of encouraging people to have more garden waste collected at the same time, for example, two or three bins, by having a lesser amount for the second or third one?
Yeah, we so again, it varies across the county in terms of some or across the country. Some local authorities charge the same for a second bin as they do for the first one. I think in the original report that went to ONS, the recommendation was that we would do that. Again, it's within members' gift. We can. So I think we've looked at options that if it was £60, then a second bin would be £30 and that. So yeah, so it is something that we are exploring. I think just going back to kind of Councillor Whitehouse's point as well with the small, with anyone that doesn't generate a huge amount of garden waste, there's nothing to stop residents teaming up together and sharing a green waste bin, and that it doesn't make any difference from a collection point of view. And I know that speaking to colleagues, this does happen elsewhere outside of the district. So people providing a resident's paying for it and it's got a permit sticker, then that neighbours, if there's two residents with fairly small bins and they need one bin between the two of them, that's fine. And that.
Can I just come back? So can you confirm then that once your costs are taken out of it, any surplus, if you like, of garden waste is a profit to you because you're getting money for having that made into compost or other things?
David will.
Yeah, if I can just come back on that point. All of our waste that we collect goes to Essex County Council. They're our waste disposal authority. So we will be handing that waste over to Essex County Council, and they will undertake whatever options that they wish to consider with that. So we won't make anything by the tonnage that we deliver to them. From our point of view, we've got many other sort of waste targets, including reducing household waste. So the idea of encouraging additional waste is not really one that's for our type of a agenda as in a local authority. We would want people to work to reduce their waste, not necessarily increase it, then pass it on to us, which will increase costs to the waste disposal authority, because the contracts that they let have got a minimum tonnage and a sort of maximum tonnage, and there's penalties from going either side of that.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused now. My point being that if you're having garden waste and you compost it at home, you're making compost for the garden. And surely the same applies if it's being collected by an authority. And if it's being collected by an authority, even if it's being passed on to ECC, that can then be resold as compost. And when you're actually collecting that, there's a cost in actually collecting it, but the amount you get, there must be a cut-off, a break-even point, and the amount you get, then if you have more than the cut-off point, you should be able to make a profit. At the moment, there are quite a few households who put out several bins for one reason or another, and it seems to me to consider that can we be making a profit? And obviously the contract you've got with ECC means it doesn't matter how much we provide, that it's a set cost.
This authority doesn't pay for disposal. Our job is a waste collection authority, so our job is to collect the waste and hand it over to Essex County Council. We do not get charged for its disposal, and any costs relating to that are Essex County Council's. So any profit that you may think is made out of them turning it into compost or whatever would stay with Essex County Council. But obviously, you know, if you make, I don't know, £20 a tonne out of compost, but it costs you £30 as a waste disposal authority to dispose of that, you're still incurring a cost of £10. So if you increase your tonnage, those costs rise with it as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I've got two more committee members and then I'll move over to non-committee members. So Councillor Sunga.
Thank you, Chairman. I was going to ask the same question about an additional extra bin, Mr. Warwick. Those properties that have bigger gardens will have more than the bin that we've got, which is 240 litres, that they would actually fill that up quite easily. I can only speak from Chigwell's perspective. I know there's bigger gardens there, and a lot of the residents have always expressed they didn't have an objection to paying the extra amount if they could have an extra bin. So I think this would be good news for them, in a sense. So, but yeah, I think it's a really good way to move forward and make us more viable as a council.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Sorry, just come back on the Christmas trees. We said that there'll be no additional charge, but then Davies just said that there'll effectively be a compulsory voluntary charge, because obviously St Clair's Hospice, I know they charge me £5 or £10 a year to collect it, so there will be a charge, or there won't be a charge for the people that have the green bins. That's the first bit. And the second one is, actually I'm thinking about it, it might be an ECC question. So at the moment, do we compost food and garden waste separately, or do we compost it together? And then going forward, are we going to compost it separately? But that might be an Essex County Council question, so I don't know.
Yes, thank you. At the moment, we commingle the food and garden together when we collect it, and it's composted and go through its process together. It's not separated at any point. The point probably from a county perspective, since the vast majority of food and garden waste that we collect is garden waste, we're paying obviously a higher charge, because if it was garden waste, you could windrow it in the open type of thing, because it's purely garden waste. As soon as you put food in there, there's a mountain of regulations of what you need to do, and you need to have it in an enclosed facility, because obviously you'll attract rodents if you've got it out in the open. So the cost differential between collecting them can be quite substantial, and that's another reason for being able to split these waste streams into two separate ones, one for food that requires all the necessary regulations and additional costs, and one for the garden waste that can be sort of shredded and dealt with as garden waste.
Thank you. So any more committee members have any questions? No, then I'll move over to Councillor Wiskin.
Thank you, Chairman. Couple of questions. The LGR is just round the corner. If there's significant capital investment in this project, which is, I think I quoted at £500,000 in the report. With LGR, we're going to be merged with other authorities, and this authority no longer exists. What is the compatibility of the equipment and the actual service provision, which is going to change? The question is, should we not just wait till LGR is upon us and go with systems which are fit for those new entities? That's my first question. Secondly, I think most residents will see this as a council tax rise by the back door. I think many people will use the black bin for their small amounts of green waste, which flies in the face of the principle we should be making it easier for people to recycle. That's the bottom line principle, not more difficult and more expensive. They will regard that they're paying for it already. And thirdly, I think there's no consultation of residents who are the consumers of this service. I think some sort of consultation should have been done.
Yes, thank you. How it will blend in with other authorities, as James has already said, we're only one of two other Essex authorities that does not separate its waste. So obviously it will blend in with the other authorities. Whichever authorities we end up being merged with, the service would be compatible. As far as contamination, if people started to use their black bin, we have a contamination policy that would mean that bin would be left behind and the resident would need to remove the contamination and put it in the correct waste stream. And as far as a sort of consultation and charges by the back door, the legislation relating to green waste has been in for a number of decades now, and this authority has in the past charged for green waste, then moved it to being free, and so on. And green waste is household waste, but it's household waste that you may make a charge. And most other authorities now do use that legislation to charge for its collection. You don't charge for its disposal, but you charge for its collection.
Councillor Whitbread, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to come back to Councillor Wiskin's points, which I have a great deal of sympathy with many of them. I mean, the reality is, whether we like it or not, in 2 years' time under LGR, it is likely we'll have to adopt this system as part of a new unitary. But the reason we're looking at this time is, quite frankly, because of the huge budget gap we've got to fill this year. It's 3.4 million as we currently stand. So what I would say to anyone, and we've previously pushed this back when it's been at kind of pre-cabinet meetings looking at the budget, this is part of a suite of difficult choices that we're going to have to look at. It's something, as I say, I'm not necessarily naturally comfortable with introducing new charges, but it's one of many difficult decisions we're going to look at. So if members decide they don't want to introduce this charge, we'll have to find that money elsewhere. So it's part of what is, you know, a difficult decision and a suite of difficult decisions which we're going to have to consider in the coming months, and hopefully you know, there's going to be lots of different options to look at, and this is probably one of the easier ones, I would say. So I thought I'd just make that comment that this needs to be considered as part of the budget round. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chair. We've got a couple of sort of operational questions and a couple of financial questions, if that's all right. I mean, first of all, it'd be helpful to hear a bit more about the contamination policy. It comes back to Councillor Lee's question earlier on about what she does with the cut flowers she gets sent. You know, I guess if, you know, a bunch of cut flowers or the house plants tossed in the grey waste bin, you know, once a month or so, that's no big issue. If people are filling in the bottom 25% or 30% of their bin with weeds every fortnight, you know, that does become an issue. I mean, at what point does the contamination policy kick in? And realistically, you know, other than people digging through bins, you know, how is it operated? And the other question was, I thought I heard Mr. Warwick said that we're going to try and avoid collecting unwanted green bins. Paragraph 14 of the report says we're proactively going to go out there and collect unwanted green bins. And is what's in the report been overtaken by what Mr. Warwick's just said, or yeah, just clarify where we are on that as well, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the contamination policy, it's very clear that any contamination is not allowed from a resident's point of view. Operationally, we have to use our common sense. So if you find, you know, a bunch of flowers or something like that, that's going to be ignored. What we don't want to do is suddenly find that under some sort of household waste, the bin is filled with leaves, grass cuttings, branches and every other type of waste. How we will check that, because people do hide the inappropriate waste in the wrong containers, is we'll be using the hoppers. The vehicles that we've got are what are called low rave bars. So we can actually see into the hopper. And what we will do is we sporadically will go around the district, and as we empty these bins, we'll be checking the contents, because what the crews will be doing as part of the contamination policy, they'll be carrying out a visual check because they need to open the bin to actually be able to put it onto the bin lift sensor so they can check it at that point. But obviously, as we know, and as a previous leader of this council found out and won, that we emptied a bin when he came out with the crews, and inside was a car battery that ended up falling on his foot. So that's why it's handy for us to have the low rate bars. It gives much more flexibility than just having pure bin lifts on the back of the lorries. So we'll be able to check on that type of things. Regarding the green bins, obviously, if there are bins out there that people don't want and they put them on the street, we're going to end up going to collect them. What we put in the report was that there might be a way that we could systematically turn round to residents and say, if you don't want them, we're going to come down at this particular point. It's not your collection day. If you put them out, we'll take them away. Because what I will do operationally is take them back. I'll wash them out, clean them, put them back into stock and reuse them accordingly, because obviously the way that we purchase bins for all the three major waste streams are that the bins and their parts are interchangeable. So the bins, the value of those bins won't be lost. We'll put them back into stock.
Thanks. I mean, that certainly seems a better solution than people dumping them at household waste sites and so on and sort of losing, not being able to reuse the bin. On the financial side, I could see in the report the cost of the new garden waste service. I wasn't clear what the cost of the food and waste service would be. But I think it's worth remembering we're talking about filling up budget gaps and so forth. And the budget gap is, the main contribution is by not having to pay the costs of the garden waste service. That £700,000 that otherwise would be done. And the £300,000, whatever it is on top, 396,000. I mean, I do sort of share the comments earlier. That is a big margin. It seems way beyond what's needed to cover increases in labour and petrol costs. I mean, it is one of the highest charges in Essex. And I can see that there's an argument for some sort of cost recovery approach to the garden waste service. I'm uncomfortable with such a sort of profit-seeking approach. And I think that is something that's going to need to be looked at as we get further into the budget process.
Thank you. So if no one else has got any questions, the committee has one recommendation, and that's to agree that EFDC introduce an annual garden waste subscription charge of £60 for fortnightly collections of garden waste. So as far as I understand it, if we vote for this today, it's not saying it's definitely happening, but we're recommending that as a committee, if when we get to the budget stage, it's an option to look at a £60 charge for that, as far as I know. So
it's saying that you want to see it happen, but it will go through a further process. And if you only want to see it happen subject to other things, like other options being explored or concessionary fees or whatever, I think you need to make that point now, so it sort of gets into the system.
I think it will come back as in December for the budget, or later in the year when we look at the...
I think it's going to come in a couple of weeks, so it's ready for this committee to support the recommendation of Cabinet.
Oh, okay,
So we
fine.
support it.
Okay, so it is that the committee support that decision and it will go to Cabinet in a few weeks' time for approval.
Yes.
Councillor Whitehouse.
Are you taking a vote? Because I don't support it.
No,
I mean,
no, well, if not everyone is in agreement, yes, we will have a vote.
The recommendation is agreed.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, agreed.
So to start with then, if all members are happy with that to go to Cabinet, any in favour, please vote now.
Are we taking
sorry.
a vote? We don't need to take a vote. It's everybody's agreed.
No, they're not agreed. No, we're not in agreement, so we're going to take a vote as a committee. Yeah, we will have a vote. So all members in favour of putting that to Cabinet, please vote now.
Five, Chairman.
And all against?
5, Chairman.
Okay, no abstentions.
No abstentions. Chairman, in this instance, you have the casting vote.
Yeah, so
I must advise you that you do not necessarily have to vote the way you voted in the first instance.
so I'll vote in favour of that.
The proposal has gone forward.
Thank you. Okay, so that is all dealt with. So item number 8 is the Rural Regeneration Reports, pages 21 to 100. I'll pass over to Rick to go through that.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a hopefully short presentation for you, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, so good evening all. Thank you very much for your time today. I just want to run you through the main findings from the rural regeneration reports that we commissioned last year, March, and the project ran between March 24 and March 25. The target rural areas were Abridge, Chigwell, Nasing, North Weald, Roydon and Theydon Boys. And the way that this presentation is structured is I'll show you some common findings initially that were covered in all the reports, and then we'll go report by report, looking at Abridge and Theydon Boys together, Chigwell, then Nasing and Roydon together, and then North Weald. There is a logic to presenting them like this. And finally, just for your convenience, there's a small color key at the bottom right. Green, you will see a small green tick. That means that the recommendation or there's a project that is underway. Amber is that recommendation is already part of our service plan. Red is that it's outside of our area of influence, or we don't have the budget this year to do so. And yellow is a proposal that came from the reports from the consultants and could be explored. So jumping onto the common findings first. We as a council need urgently to rebuild bridges with our local businesses. So we understand what is happening with them, what the situations, and we can provide them with better support. And this is something that is already happening. We have a number of initiatives that we're working on already. For example, to create rural, town, or village business networks or partnerships. And also hubs that would work as satellites, district-wide networks, and we would get to listen and understand what is happening around the district, and then we could provide targeted support instead of what you could call a more scattergun approach to just, saying, oh, let's do this particular project or this particular project, but without data or actual intelligence that was gathered before that. We are trying to move to data-based decision-making after all. The next common finding was unsuitable public transport and road infrastructure improvements. This is the remit of county, so unfortunately there's nothing that at the moment we can do about. Employability skills training, business development, financial literacy training. It is currently in our service plan, but we are hoping that we can start to get these town and village partnerships, and we can begin listening to what the businesses need, so we again, we can provide more targeted support. The next one is develop new energy solutions and explore options for renewable energy projects. This is something that has not been explored. It's something that would require a wider conversation politically and with our planning department to see if it's feasible, if it's desirable, and if it could be taken somewhere in the future. Affordable housing, yes, we are working, we have a large number of housing projects allocated in our local plan, and we are working as hard as we can to deliver that housing up until the current local plan runs until 2033. Unemployment since the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been a recurrent issue around the district. And it is green because, for example, we're currently running a project where we're trying to target ex-workers of the hospitality industry and try to place them in apprenticeships within the NHS to be trained and be given work in the future. The next point is future workforce development, jobs and careers fairs within schools, and employment and skills programs. The one that is already underway from this is the employment and skills programs. This is a project that we launched a few months ago and sits within the framework of Section 106 contributions in planning applications. We are asking residential projects of over 50 dwellings to provide apprenticeships, hire local people, and hire local construction companies. We're still early in that project, and we still need to see how successful it's going to be in the future, but it is part of a kind of wider national movement, and also we developed this project with Essex County Council and the Commissioner for Employment and Skills. Develop strong community wealth building principles and strategies. We have been working with the Centre for Local Economic Strategies to help us look at how we operate and to help us start to look at some strategies that we could implement to see that any investment, any projects that happen within the district or that we carry out as a council have a wider community benefit and business benefit. So those are the common findings, and now I'm going to move to the specific reports. So I'll just start with Abridge and Theddon Boys. And I want to make it very, very clear that this is about Abridge and Theddon Boys being able to draw stronger economic links. This is specifically about businesses, high streets, potentially visitor economy. This is because combining their economic activities could give both economies, both markets, a much wider reach, a bigger footfall, a bigger critical mass. So this is something that, as I said before, we're starting to deploy now. We're talking to different rural areas across the district to start and set up these partnerships. Apparently, so I'll move now to the next point. Apparently, there is some demand, some increasing demand for SMEs in Abridge and Theddon Boys because of the proximity to the central line. This is potentially attracting people away from London. More affordable workspace, etc. So we need to look deeper into this and see how we can support any incoming SMEs. Focus on digital industries. There's also demand for SME space that again leverages the access to the tube, and it seems to be some planning application evidence. For example, on Theron Boys High Street, there's a few businesses on the first floor of the high street that not only have settled there, but have become very active in the business community. So we need to reach out to them and see how we can work together to continue fostering this potential emerging sector in the district. The rest of the points, as you can see, they have a bright yellow light bulb, and these are more about the trying to foster the visitor economy that will have a benefit of also benefiting our high streets. So they range from planning or creating trail walks from Theron Boys to A Bridge, potentially connecting to the forest, share visitor assets, and coordinate with the active Theron Boys event calendar. See how, if there are possibilities of A Bridge sort of piggybacking onto those events. To do this, we would have to carry out a comprehensive inventory of shared assets, including natural attractions, historical sites, and cultural resources. To unify it, we would need to create a unified brand identity that captures the essence of both villages, focusing, from the Theron Boys side on woodland and the other aspects of Theron Boys, and riverside activities more closer to A Bridge. And the final one that I find quite interesting is to explore how to work with Stapleford Aerodrome, either to create a potential center for excellence in aeronautics, engineering, pilot training, or even as an extension to a trail that could end up with a static aircraft exhibition or static car festivals that are very popular. That is for the main findings of A Bridge and Theron Boys. I'll move now to Chigwell. Chigwell has a very active high business activity. It has been identified that those businesses are relatively small businesses and they need support, and they're not very aware of the ecosystem where they reside. So again, is trying to create, invite them to create this framework, this network partnership, so they can talk to each other, they can find out about what they need, and then we can listen to them and again target the support they need. The consultants identified a market need for somewhere between 20 to 30,000 square feet for a local business hub, and this is to provide a number of activities like co-working spaces, meeting rooms, business support services. Once these have been identified, access to internet, but also to benefit communities and businesses to help foster a sense of community and collaboration. They recommended that we don't go it alone, that we find a partner to deliver this if we can completely identify where this project could go. Obviously, this needs further discussion from a political and a planning point of view as well. There is a potential of further integrating Theron Boys A Bridge with Chigwell. This simply could open up more markets for all of the businesses that are within these areas. We already know that there's high levels of deprivation in Limes Farm, so the community needs further support, like the pantry needs expansion. Our communities team is already very active within Limes Farm. I believe that there is also a specific community support officer for Limes Farm. Yeah. So efforts are already underway, as you can see, the green tech, as well as community activities. And again, ways how we can foster the visitor economy, explore potential festivals or summer events or Christmas markets to try and bring more footfall to their high streets. It is in our action plan, but we have not executed yet. So that is for Chickwell. Then we move on to Nason and Royden. Again, the reason why Nason and Royden have been together is to put their markets and their economies to work together and access wider footfall or critical mass. Working together with Nason and Royden, we could explore how the links, their excellent transport links, could attract not only local residents to potential visitor economy activities, but also people from London or much further north. The glasshouse industry, as you may be aware, needs quite a lot of support and investment. I cannot comment on this particular point anymore because we have commissioned a separate report, particularly on the glasshouse industry. And we will be informing you hopefully soon about the outcomes of that report and the pathway or the action plan to try and be able to support them. But in general, what they are suffering from is lack of investment. They cannot grow all year round, so they're growing about 22 weeks a year compared to other places that can grow year round. Insecure employment and low productivity, as I said before. So this report is underway, and as soon as it's in shape good enough to share with you, we will do so. The other two points are about supporting the visitor economy much further. The Royden Marina is doing very, very well, and we should have conversations with them to see if there's any appetite, potentially to put together local music festivals or local produce markets, synergy with the glasshouse industry, or boating-related activities that could bolster up the visitor economy in those two areas. As I said before, yeah, also potentially including the Royden Marina into trail walks and again a coordinated image, a brand for what can be done on a day out in Nason and or Royden. And now, last but not least, is Northfield Bassett. So this one is quite different because a lot of what's happening in Northfield Bassett is pinned around the Northfield Airfield employment area and the new master plan extension to the existing village. So on that basis, we will need to wait and see what happens when these developments start to come to fruition. But we were recommended to develop a strategy for Northfield Airfield to ensure that we have high density and high quality jobs and work together with Google to explore potential sponsorship or any other avenues to help them anchor the remaining of the Northfield Airfield employment area. We have been recommended to explore digital entertainment industry to be placed within the airfield allocation because central government at least has made a recent commitment to try and make the UK a leader in digital entertainment industry through UKI. We were also recommended, and this makes sense because these are also the target sectors of the UK Innovation Corridor, as well as a previous Essex report on what targets we should be targeting regionally, which are research and development, technology, software development, life sciences, defense, aviation and aerospace, and also advanced manufacturing. And this is green because we're currently doing some research and trying to put together a strategy and a vision for what we want to do with the remaining 20 hectares that we have at the airfield. Explore making the Saunders market a more prominent part of the local economy. As we know, it is only a weekend market. we would hope, or they recommended, that we could find them a permanent site and seek further collaboration. Mr. Saunders has previously expressed a desire to work with us to help us develop other markets across the district, which is something that we have not explored yet, but we're hoping to do so soon. And again, about the visitor economy, try to develop it by leveraging the North Weald Heritage Train Line, the miles of prows. For those of you that are not familiar with planning terms, those are public right-of-ways. The redoubts and other assets and engaging activities that already happen in the airfield. And that is it for the presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot for the report. I'll go straight to members, and the first hand was Councillor Rackham.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your very interesting report. I'm interested, firstly, to know about high street partnerships and how we are attracting people to come along to those. Back in the day when Councillor Darshan Sung and myself were councillors in Waltham Forest, we had a nice high street that we looked after. But we couldn't, at the time, attract people to come to any of those meetings. So I'd be interested to know how you're going about getting people to come to those meetings. I do totally agree with you about having more street markets, whether they're night markets, whether they're day markets and events. There was something in the press today, for instance, that said that musical concerts, big musical concerts, are bringing in a lot of money to areas. And the other thing I have been tapping into is the fact that people are now getting more and more scared to go into the centre of town because of incidents, crime and stuff like that. So I think we're on a wave here where we've really, really got potential to bring things back to the high street and to local areas to get people, because they feel safer in their own homes and in their own areas, to actually come out to events. But we've got to do more, and we've got to encourage companies to come in and come here. That was the other question. How are we going about getting quite diverse companies coming in to us here in this district? Thank you.
Wendy will give you more answers about how we're developing the partnerships as she is leading on it. What I can tell you is we do understand that nationally and generally the high streets are struggling. We are exploring, and we can't put spades on the ground just yet because we need more information. We have been battling with Essex for a bit to try and, for example, do some testers on high streets across the district with EV charging spots, 2, 3, 4. And see if that brings a little bit more footfall. There is also the potential to run programs to help the current high street traditional shops to diversify. And by diversifying is maybe trying to look at what they do in a different manner. There are really great examples. For example, in Islington, there are some places where a butcher shop at night somehow becomes a restaurant. I do not understand how they manage to, manage all the different particularities of it. Or simply to go out and have an online shop to support the current presence on the high street. There is more ideas that need to be explored, but also we need to identify a way of deploying such projects, because the nature of the high streets in every single town are different, and we need to definitely do more work about that. And now I'll pass you on to Wendy to let you know more about the partnerships.
Thank you, Rick. So what we've done so far is we've gone out to most of the potential town and village partnerships. We've started off by going out to the town or parish council. Now, we're not actually asking that this is completely led by town or parish councils. It needs to be the whole community. What we are also using is the wonderful community champions, the voluntary community champions. They are the ones that are on the ground. They probably know far more of the businesses than we do. So what we have asked for initially is to have an initial meeting with the clerk of the town or parish council. With a couple of community champions from that area, just to have an initial discussion, because we do have some UK shared prosperity funding to support with this. And initially, we would like to offer a financial contribution of £1,000 to support those areas to set up a town or village partnership. You'll notice as well we're taking the word centre out, because it's not just about town centres, it's not just about village centres, it's about the wider community, the wider businesses. We've got lots of industrial areas in our district where we need to pull those businesses in. So we've had some few initial discussions so far. We haven't gone out to all of them as yet. We've tried to stagger them a little bit. What we want to do, this initial £1,000 contribution could actually be for administrative setup costs. For example, some early stage activities such as stakeholder engagement, meeting coordination, foundational planning. And with respect to your question about how are we going to get the people to these meetings, there's going to be a lot of legwork. You know, there's no denying that, but it's about trying to get the businesses to buy into it and to see the bigger picture about if everybody comes together, we can really make a difference. And that's why I'm really passionate about bringing communities into economic development. You know, I've already, obviously in our team in community development and wellbeing, we've really rolled out the Community Champion programme, and I see this as another side of it. And I actually have this vision that maybe in the end we can have like a town and village partnership forum where everybody comes together and they can share ideas and experiences. So what we're offering at the moment is the £1,000 financial contribution. We will work with the stakeholders in those areas to go and do the legwork. You know, it might be some posters, it might be knocking on doors of businesses, going and talking to people. For example, nazing. I've already had a brief meeting with the parish clerk, the chair, the vice chair, and two really active community champions from nazing. And already they're gaining momentum. They can see the bigger picture of this. They've gone out to the local pub, who is a real community-focused pub. You know, they could have markets in the pub car park. They could have family events. They've already talked a lot about the safety, particularly at Nazim Parade of Shops. You know, there's some extra funding as well that we do have from Shared Prosperity funding. And what we really want is for these partnerships to form their own constitution. So it doesn't need to be run by the district council or the parish or town council. It's the community together. And they can actually form a constitution and apply for some of this funding that we've got. And those kind of things that can be improved could be security to those shops. It could be some businesses that really need to get a website built to actually build their economic development of their business. The main thing we want this to be, though, is sustainable. We don't want to come along and say, we've got some funding here and we're going to help you and then just leave you to it. You know, it's got to be a continuous process. Each area, I think, will be operating differently. They've got different demographics. Already Nazin are quite okay talking about, you know, maybe working with Roydon, and they even mentioned what about Epping Green as well. So we're really at early stages. We're really excited about it. Yeah, so watch this space, and if you've got any more questions, please do ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sunga.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think much of what I was going to raise has been taken care of by Wendy. She does a fantastic job, by the way, with the community champions, really getting the local community to engage. And I'm pleased to say that those community champions will now play a very active role, I would imagine, with connecting with the local businesses. I'm a local businessman myself, and it can be lonely. And having the support from the local authority, Epping Forest District Council, will go a long way, especially during COVID, as you know, we supported our local businesses, especially the coffee shops, etc., to have the pavement licenses, and we reached out, and that went down really well. Just to touch base on parish and town councils, believe it or not, they play a very active role. If they get it, in inverted commas, then they really can make a big difference with the local shops. In terms of local shops, they are the lifeline of any community. They're the heart of any community, and we really need to make sure that they're there because local residents want them to be there. We did run a campaign with Shop Local, support your local businesses. I think it's important that we expand on that idea, that theme of supporting local businesses. And I think the Rural Action Plan really is going to be something that we need to work on and sort of build on the foundation we've already got, especially with community champions that are out there. Town and parish councils do have assets. I know that if I'm being, what's the word I'm looking for, if I'm being selfish, if I can just speak on Chigwell, I know that we've got some assets. And to find 20 to 30,000 square feet of a business space is going to be very difficult. So there are assets, but I just think we need to engage with, and I'm pleased to hear that you're going to be engaging with town and parish councils, because they will open up and they will make spaces available, and that's where you could have these the meetings, the rooms, and these facilities for local businesses. But yeah, just to say that this is really encouraging. I hope that we can build on this. It's a great concept. But the one thing that I just really want to touch base on is the fact that local businesses, they do like this idea that they are with the local authority. So maybe some sort of a scheme to say that these traders or these shopkeepers are good people, some sort of vetting procedure. I don't know if it works or not, but it certainly has worked in other areas like Love Your High Street sort of thing idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dadd.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your very interesting report, and also the written reports, which obviously are slightly different. I've got a few questions, which was from your first slide that you put up about your common findings. And some of the things that you've mentioned, which is having business links and hubs, skills, jobs and careers and apprenticeships. Now, are you having any collaboration with any other organisations? Because I go back to where there was something called Business Link, which I know was disbanded. But, I mean, is it just EFDC that are actually funding these, or are you working collaboratively with other people? I don't know if you want to answer individual questions or wait till the end, but...
I'm happy to
as you go.
Okay. Yeah, how is better for you? If you want to continue with another, okay. Okay, no problem. The employment and skills programs we developed together with Essex County Council. We are also working together with the North Essex Economic Board to also deliver other skills programs and business support programs. And we have been doing so for a while, since we joined the NEEP. We are also in touch with TRAC. TRAC are a shared apprenticeship provider, and they are very, very good, especially for construction projects.
Can I come back on that one in particular? Because I know that some of the developers in Ongar, where we have very little employment, but also not a lot of unemployment, more than one of them are very concerned about the requirement in S106 about having local to EFDC apprentice. Now, as you know, Ongar is quite different to sort of Loughton area and so on. For example, the tradespeople I get tend to come from the Brentwood area, Chelmsford, or the sort of wider Essex area. And I think that that concern needs to be addressed, because the rural area, people who live around there, don't necessarily work in London, whereas the Loughton people do. As the Section 106 is set out, we refer as a geographic boundary of the district to keep it open
to anyone that can that would be willing to any company, for example, that would be tendered and go and work in the Ongar projects. Are you referring specifically to the?
No, what I'm actually saying is you're defining it too closely for the number of projects that are coming forward all at once in Ongar. There won't be the number of people to be able to do that. And the developers are concerned that you are restricting it, and perhaps it should be looked at area by area, because in the more rural areas to the north and northwest, their catchment for tradespeople is not the Loughton area. It's the wider Essex area, and I think I'd like you to take that back about the restrictions you're putting to developers with the S106. Thank you. Sorry, I have a couple of other ones. And that is, sorry, a couple of other ones. I was very interested in your reports. Now, the Thaden Boys one with Abridge, I see that this again is about planning. They're very concerned about retaining their character and the fact that they have parking. A lot of it is for commuters. And I'm wondering how you're getting on with this park and ride suggestions and that sort of thing, because, of course, Epping has similar problems, that people come from Harlow to get on the Epping train, and similarly with Epping, because that is something that a park and ride or whatever it might be quite useful, but where is the car park going to be? And we have a very active Thaden Boys Action Group, but what other groups have you been working with?
I just would like to go to your previous question before. And when developers come and engage with us, as is part of their obligation, and if they have concerns, we have previously allowed them to take Epping Forest District as a first priority, because we want this to work for our businesses and people first, but we have allowed them to go wider into Essex as well, to find apprentices, workers, if they're struggling to fill their targets. So we have already done that. So yes, we do that. With regards to the park and ride, although it is within the planning team, it is not my area of expertise. I could get our sustainable transport officer, who's, by the way, retiring in about 2 weeks' time, to maybe send you some more information on what's happening. I honestly don't have enough information to be able to answer that question.
And I'm nearly finished. North Weald. Now, there's two things that concern me greatly there. I mean, I think it's some wonderful things going on there and a lot of opportunities, but the Saturday market is causing a real problem on the A414, not just for North Weald, but for Ongar, for people coming along the 414 to Chelmsford, and so on. And it is affecting businesses like the Harlow Garden Centre. Now, you did say that that road improvements and that sort of thing, some done at ECC. What steps are you taking to actually work with Essex Highways to see what solutions there can be? Because it's not just how successful the market is. You've got a lot more houses coming into North Weald, which is going to actually, again, put stress on that particular area. And then I've got one more question about North.
Thank you. Yes, we're very well aware of the issues that the market can bring to the area in terms of traffic. I am aware, although I don't have all the details, but there is a study, a highway study being undertaken right now. It is, I am not privy to the details of that study, so I would have to come back to you on that one as well. Apologies.
And the last question is about the Epping-Ongar Railway. You're talking about leveraging. What do you mean by that? I mean, I know quite a lot about the Epping-Ongar Railway because I work closely with the manager who's recently retired.
this is something that there's a lot of will, not only from the point of view of the developers of the Northfield Bassett master plan. There is a lot of good feeling towards that railway, and there are sections that would like to see it receive a little bit more love, and it's basically about if we put together a plan for visitor economy, is to make it almost the heart of that plan. Is basically that. It's just trying to bring more people to it and make it a little bit more widely known.
Okay, and lastly, were you aware that Ongar Castle was up for sale?
Yes. Yes, we are aware that the castle is up for sale. We briefly looked into any possibilities, but unfortunately we just don't have that level of funding or influence to be able to engage meaningfully just yet. We're waiting to see what happens with it and see if we can maybe engage with anyone that buys it eventually. I haven't heard about the sale in quite a few months, but yeah, this was about 6 months to a year that I heard that it was being sold.
Thank you. So I'm going through members in the order I see the hands go up, so I'm not ignoring you. I've got Councillor Morgan first and then you, Councillor Whitehouse.
Thank you very much. Mine really has to do with the community hub and also what Councillor Sunga was saying about town and parish councils. We do have a very successful community hub in Chigwell. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to Wendy Cockbill, who put together the community champions, one of which I was a very long while ago, to actually get this community hub working and running. So thank you very much, Wendy. Without you, we wouldn't have this hub, so thank you very much. It's a really good hub. We cover everything from alcohol and drug abuse to food pantry for those struggling in the current cost of living crisis, to social spaces for those who would normally be isolated. And we also cover men's mental health. We are looking to start a men's shed in the future and having someone to come in and get people back into the working environment with the help of our local businesses, whilst advertising and supporting them as well. We've also worked with users who have then become, so users of the pantry have then become volunteers, and we've helped them back into the workforce through becoming a volunteer and getting back into effectively what would be retail, showing them how to use tills and managing people, how to use PDQ, which are pretty damn quick machines. That's what PDQ stands for taking credit cards and things. And we have local businesses that actually help us support the hub as well. We get lots of food and bits and pieces from them. In fact, 4 of the community champions from Chigwell and Abridge volunteer on a regular basis at the community hub, and they volunteer on behalf of Chigwell Parish Council, and we run over 15 regular activities, engaging all ages, races, religions. We cover all and none. Today, we had 46 people attend, and that was up to 1:15 when I actually left the building because I had other things to do. We also run all-inclusive events, whether it's be Christmas, barbecues, afternoon teas to celebrate things like coronations, VE Day, Diwali, anything we cover. We also do children's engagement community days. We have been awarded the UK SPF, so the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, to improve our community hub and help improve our community engagement. I believe at the moment it's with the acting chair of Chigwell Parish Council to see if this can be moved forward. And it's allowing us to be more friendly and promote services needed within our community, such as whether it be well-being for our members or for the health and things. Some of our officers and councillors have come along to the hub to see how we've built a good sustainable hub over the past 4 years, and if it's not too cheeky, I would like to ask Councillor Sunga, as it's your area, because it is in Chigwell Village, whether maybe you'd consider inviting members and officers to come along to the hub to see how we engage and support others, and maybe how we can engage and support with other areas that we've seen highlighted today. Thank you.
I think it's an open invitation to anybody that would like to come. It's not just for officers, it's for the whole of the Epping Forest District as well, all of the councillors, anybody that wants to see how we do things in Chigwell. And can I also say the UK Prosperity Fund, that Fabio Fabrizio has actually been working with us very closely. He's a portfolio holder for the leader as well, Councillor Chris Red as well. We're working very closely to see what we can do, but in terms of improving the facilities, yeah, it's an open invitation to all. Thank you.
Thank you. So, has any more members got any points to raise? Councillor Morris. Oh, sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Whitehouse. That was an accident.
Yes, it's a very interesting report. I've lived in Thaden for many years, moved away 2 years ago, but I'm particularly interested in that village. I'm quite surprised by some of the things you say about it. Who has been involved in getting the action plan to the stage it's at the moment? Oh, Thaden Boys.
The reports were put together by a consultant that we commissioned called Dayton Bell. They have a really good track record across the different districts in North Essex. They're highly recommended.
Presumably the consultant consulted with some local people. So who were the local people and organisations he consulted with?
I would have to look into the reports, and I don't know who they consulted by heart, but I can get back to them and give you the information.
When Wendy was speaking about Nazing, she gave the impression that there was a lot of community involvement in the plan that they're doing, and I assumed that they'd be much the same. Is that because Nazing is just more advanced in what they're doing, or they've gone about it in a different way? I mean, it seems so obvious to me that the people you need to consult are the parish council and the ward councillors, and the church is always very active in villages. And yet I don't see that coming through. And in fact, when I asked one of the parish councillors if they had knew anything about this, they didn't. So it just sounds very different to what we've heard about Nazing.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehouse. Just to let you know that we haven't actually reached out to Thaden Parish Council yet, so that's probably the reason why. We've tried to stagger them because we didn't want to get inundated with having lots of meetings coming up and trying to juggle them, so we've staggered them. So I can tell you that we're still to reach out to Abridge, Chigwell, Loughton and Thaden Boys, and they will be done in the next week or so, so hopefully they will hear. Just to let you know as well that we're already working with Loughton Broadway partnership, and so we're looking at Loughton High Street and the other areas around there.
And finally, when that first slide came up, there was a big red cross against public transport and roads, because you said it was Essex County Council. But if you look at the action plan for Thaden Boys, one of the key actions is to support, it is about transport and the need to improve it. You say about all the nice things about it, you don't say how very infrequent the bus service is. But, surely you're going to do something about it. It's such a key part of, a tourist, a place, for example, to have transport and parking and so forth. But it seemed a bit defeatist just to put a red cross and say we can't do this because it's Essex. I mean, when we're, local government reform, we're all supposed to be doing the same thing. One organisation, local authority, will do it all. So, surely this is going down more than the next couple of years. So don't you need to look ahead and integrate transport into this as well?
You're very correct. In my involvement with the larger strategic master plans that we have been developing over the last few years, we have dealings with some of the members of the team at county to try and resolve public transport issues and buses. we are very much looking forward to LGR when we will get a lot more autonomy on how we deal with what will eventually be our own bus services. Our sustainable transport officer has had a very good relationship with a new company, and you can see them running around now, the blue buses. They used to be called Vectare, and now they're called Central Connect, I believe. We have been developing a good relationship with them. That relationship needs to continue to grow. When Stephen leaves, I will make sure that I re-engage with them and see what can be done. They're willing to work with us without looking at county. It is outside protocol a little bit, so it needs to be done with a lot of care and respect for something that is not completely within our remit. But I will take your comment, and I'll be happy to go back to Central Connect and maybe have a discussion about what can be done. Thank you.
Councillor Whitbread, you wanted to come in on this?
Yeah, thank you. Just in response to Councillor Whitehouse's point, and I think the point on devolution is an important one, and particularly as we look towards the mayoral elections next year, which does have that economic development brief, it's probably a good idea for us to try and push for some of our asks, particularly in terms of transport, which I understand the mayor will have responsibility for. So I think there's probably a bit of a side project to do alongside this. I think this is a fantastic project, particularly in terms of the high street partnerships. It's something that's needed revitalising for a long time. I've been a member of the Epping Town Centre Partnership for about 9 years, and I don't think they've met for about 8 years. And when they did, it was kind of 2 businesses, one person who didn't even live in Epping and hadn't worked in Epping for 10 years. So I think there is a real need to revitalise these bodies, because when they do meet and they're effective, they're really good. And I think there's also a need, and me and Wendy have had long discussions about this, is to make it a community group. You don't want necessarily these groups to be politicised. You do want maybe some politicians kind of speaking on behalf of the council on them, but you don't want them to become politicised. So this is something that we've been very conscious of when looking at this. Wendy also has a very small team in economic development. So when we're talking about engaging across the district, it is just Wendy. Is it one other Wendy or? So it's a small team. So Wendy's doing the very best she can with minimal resources in economic development. But this community-based approach with Wendy in this new role alongside Fabrizio is fantastic. I think it's really what we need. You know, I have economic development in my portfolio as well as the money, which is a lot more positive and a lot more enjoyable in terms of the day-to-day work. But like everything, it has got challenges in terms of budget. So if we could do what we can to bring others on board and other businesses supporting, promoting, and potentially kind of funding these long-term as well, I think there's a real opportunity here, particularly as we move towards a unitary authority. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I really like the report. It's great. It's very interesting, an exciting idea. I do notice that, I mean, there are 4 sections in the report, one for each area. They all have a lot of common themes, is what when I read through them. And I think, from my point of view, I think it might be a good idea to try and pull those themes together across the rural areas. I mean, I just looked at visitor economy, transport, skills and training, which seem to be very common across all 4. And I'd really like to see a sort of a cohesive approach, a comprehensive approach, because I think that would help more than just focusing on each individual area and asking what does this one need, which will be my overriding comment on the report that you've produced so far. And I also noticed, well, we've got 2 airfields, so, you know, like, surely there must be some common ground between these 2 things. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, the way that we can develop these things is probably, we can deal with it in a slightly larger way than just looking at each individual item and asking, how do we develop this one? So that would just be, I'm just making, giving an opinion rather than asking a question. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, you are. You're correct on that side of things. So one of the reasons, and because of what you just mentioned about the commonality across the reports, is that we want to. One of the reasons why we wanted to create these business and community support networks is so we actually have ears and eyes on the ground through our collaboration with local communities and local businesses. And that way, we will be able to provide much more targeted support rather than the more general that sometimes can be provided through wider, larger organizations. We are working with our communities and our businesses, and this is the way that we can set up, without wanting to sound too, like a Hollywood movie, is literally a network of intelligence that will let us know what we can do and do it right. Also, that way we will make any funding that comes from central government go much further. Thank you.
Councillor Bedford, you're online. Did you want to respond to any of that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much. It's been very interesting this evening, and the report for North Weald I really welcome. Hopefully some of the ideas that have come forward tonight can be enacted upon, and some of the key points for me is actually this is an ideal opportunity of exploring more work with Google over at the airfield, because there are exciting opportunities, I think, for Google and sort of working with local community, trying to get something developed in the village. I've sent Wendy a quick email tonight, perhaps looking at some of the ideas around sort of energy production, which is also on the agenda there, perhaps a small wind farm of some sort to the top of the hill behind North Weald Village, as long as it doesn't interfere with the aircraft bridge. I don't think it will, because it's they used to have the masts up there. But it could be a source of revenue, and it could also be a good working project with North Weald and Epping Forest District, promoting that area, working with the Ongar Railway. That's a great idea. I think there's opportunities there for expanding Saunders markets, which I do support the market, but I do know that the impact that it's having on the village at certain times is catastrophic. It's not only the village, it's the A414. So there needs to be some joined up working, not only with the Essex County Council highways, but we need to be looking to the future with Highways England and trying to promote and push the amendments that are needed to Junction 7 as soon as possible. I think that's all I've got to say really. It's just a worthwhile report, but there is ideal opportunity of pushing development in our area. Oh, one other point, I just remembered, they're talking about the markets. I think you have to consider, and I think you should be approaching Epping Town Council for a copy of their market charter, because I believe in the market charter it actually mentions which days of the week Epping Market can run on, and that no other markets can be run within a certain distance. I think it might be 10 or 12 miles of Epping, so that needs to be looked at. So a copy of the charter, I think, would be really ideal if Epping Town Council can provide a copy. Thank you.
Okay, so the last hand I had was Councillor Rackham.
Point that Lisa raised about the hub, and I think it would be really great if we could have an email sent out perhaps with some dates that we can go and visit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's no other points from members, we've got two recommendations for this report. One, to recommend to Cabinet the rural regeneration reports and their findings to enable publication, and to recommend the actions and interventions proposed to address the findings of the reports. Are all members happy to put those recommendations forward?
Agreed.
Okay, so that's agreed. So the last item is item 9, dates of future meetings, which is due to be on the 14th of October at 7 p.m. And with that, I now close the meeting at 8:58.